show you an alternate method. Should get us the same answer if you did factoring by grouping. It's just going to be a little different. First of all, is there a common factor between all 4 terms? Yes, no? No. All right, 4 terms. I'm going to go backwards. So this is where this gets interesting. We can go by grouping, or we can do what's called a backwards box. So instead of having terms on the outside of the box, if we're going backwards, everything's going to start inside the box. Your very first term will go in the top left-hand corner. Your bottommost term with its sign goes in the bottom corner. The other 2 terms can go in either box. It does not matter. So there is the result of the box. What you now have to do is figure out what is on the outside of the box. But it still relies on you understanding a GCF. So instead of doing a GCF from a set of parentheses now, you would do a GCF from a row or a column. So if I'm looking at this row, what is the greatest common factor between 5x and 3y? What do they both have in common? Y. Now, how do I know whether it's positive or negative? Whatever the sign is of the box that I'm putting the number above is the sign of the term. Okay, so let's flip it over here. Ooh, what goes into both negative 35 and negative 21? 7. Now, because he's negative, though, this would be negative. So all you're doing is a GCF. So now let's look at this row. What's the greatest common factor between 5xy and negative 35x? 5. And what else do they have in common? An x. And since he's positive and you're putting the number outside of that box, it's a positive 5x. And then last group. Come on in. Come on in. Hi. Oh, thank you for grabbing that. I'm sorry, I meant to put that out. What's my greatest common factor between 3y and negative 21? 3. Since this is positive and he's going outside here, there's your answer. So my answer would be 5x plus 3, y minus 7. Is that what you got? Just an alternate method. It's just an alternate method. I don't know. I can't tell you which one's easier. It's really whichever one is easier for you. All right, let's look at number 4. I'm going to do 4 by grouping. And then I'll let you do 5 and 6. And then I'll go over them using box as well. All right, first of all, first question. Is there a greatest common factor between all the groups? Besides 1? You've got to ask that question. Yes or no? GCF. Hello to my 20-some students. Yes or no? No. All right. So then we can group. First 2 problems, or 2 terms, second 2 terms. And I cover this up. I like that I get to ignore half the problem. What's the greatest common factor between 2xy and 7x? Can I divide 7 by 2? No. So good guess, but 7 cannot divide into 2, or 2 cannot divide into 7. So what do they have in common? An x. So if he had a 2xy, you took out the x, what's left? 2y. You had a 7x, you took out the x, you're still left with plus 7. All right, now, here's where we have to pay attention. So this minus sign at the beginning of this group means you have to factor out a negative. If you do not factor out a negative, you're not going to see the correct answer. So those signs are ridiculously important. So what's common between 2 and 7? 1. That's it. The greatest common factor is 1. But because there's a negative sign here, we have to divide out a negative 1. What happens with negative 2y when we divide by negative 1? Positive 2y. Negative 7 divided by negative 1? Positive 7. Now let's see why we needed to take out that negative 1. Because when we reveal both sides, this parenthesis must be identical to this parenthesis. They can't be kind of alike. They have to be exactly alike. So 2x or 2y plus 7 is my GCF. If I take that 2y plus 7 away from each group, I'm left with x minus 1. Okay, I want you to try 5 and 6.